2. Today is 4 October 2017. We're meeting at the central office. We have 8 directors present, representing 7.5 votes. Start with the agenda review. I have a couple of changes I would like to make to the agenda. I would like to delete item 5B, outright Vermont. They can't make it tonight. I would like to delete item B1, unpaid leave request. It's no longer in play. And I would like to add item 7A, support staff ratification. Any other changes? Okay, then I'll look for a motion to adopt the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Thank you, Al.
I'll second that.
Thanks, Steve. Any discussion on the agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Agenda's adopted, 7.5 to 0. At this point, I'd like to ask everybody to please rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, welcome everybody. Happy Albans. Special welcome to Kathy on the screen. How are you doing, Kathy?
Very well, thanks.
For list argument.
I know.
How do you do that?
It's very fun to be on this end. I can hear all the conversations going on around the table. No,
So that means you can't say anything bad about you, huh?
We're going to mess with you all meeting. Okay, item 4, visitors. Do we have any visitors that would like to address the board tonight? Okay, move on to item 5A, presentation. We have Representative Lynn Dickinson here to talk to us tonight. So Lynn, I'll give you the floor.
Okay, thank you. It's nice to see everybody. Remember my days doing this stuff, so with Al and Milda and others. I'm going to go through a brief outline of what I think happened in the legislature and what I think is going to happen. And then I'm going to ask for questions or any suggestions or anything that you want to ask me or you want to talk to me about your concerns. In the past couple of days, there was a news article in the Vermont Digger about the property taxes to go up by 8 cents. It was not a very happy article. It was a very factual article about where we stand. The Secretary Holbrook pointed out that she's concerned about the state economy and the things that are going on with property taxes with the schools. They're looking at going up between 7 to 9 cents. The past couple of years, we've had some situations where the school boards have not been happy. And one of them was the Act 46. We had caps that were put on that really looked an awful lot like the old shark pool, the sharing pool, where you had caps put on you, and if you went over that cap, you had to pay double to the state. That was based on the grand list. As you recall, in Act 46, they put those caps on based on your yield, your average per pupil cost. People that were over that, they got very little increase. People that were under that average, 14,000 or something, that was a larger increase, but it wasn't really a large increase. It was between 1% and 5%. The article actually refers to that situation. And so school boards were not happy. Even though many school boards didn't like it and felt that they had been very frugal, they still lived within those caps. The legislature came back and kind of softened it up a little bit. But that was one attempt to go and have the state dictate to the communities and the school boards what they could spend. The second attempt actually just came this past winter, where we had the healthcare negotiations statewide. The governor originally, of course, asked for everybody to have flat budgets, but everybody was too far down the road in January to be able to do that. So what they came in later after working with the School Board Association and the Superintendent's Association is they came in with the healthcare savings that we would get from the ending of the Cadillac tax and going into the Health Connect kind of healthcare benefit for the teachers and doing it on a statewide basis. You know, there was a lot of back and forth, a lot of people didn't like it, there was a lot of discussion about it. In the end, at the very end, there was the Ash Amendment, which basically said, okay, we're going to save money for the taxpayers, and we're just not going to give you that money, and you're going to have to live with it. And that is sort of the basis of part of what they actually did in June when they finally came up with their final arrangement. It was the Ash Amendment, and there was a lot of squirming around about the fact that it was the Ash Amendment, because people didn't like that, to go and tell school boards that we were just not going to give them the money. But I think that the pressure that you're seeing, and this is not to make you happy, like I say, I think it's probably you're going to see those kinds of things continue in the future. You know, 50% of what you pay in your taxes locally, regardless of how frugal you are, the other 50% of it pays for your schools, and 50% of it goes to pay for all those other schools, some of whom have 18,000 plus per pupil costs, some of which are small schools that have, you know, a very high cost per pupil. And this is really not something that the state is, I mean, I think the legislature has now done this twice in a row, and I think they're going to probably find a way somehow, I don't know what it's going to be, but I think that's something that you have to be aware of, that I think you will likely see again. I know I sat in the school board, I sat there when VFA was, you know, as a trustee, and we never even had budgets voted on. And I know everybody thought that they were doing their best to really be as frugal as possible and keep the cost as low as possible. But that's, you know, the property tax situation and the fact that they've done this twice in the very recent past is something I think you have to be aware of and you know, ready to see again. I don't think it's going to change. They take the money, they bring it to the state, and then the state has the power to be able to determine if they give it back to you. And that's really the power that the state got with the Montpelier got with Act 60 and 68. As far as Act 46, we've been a poster child for how Act 46 works. We had gone through this many times before over the course of maybe 20 years, 30 years before that with BFA and then with the K through 12. So this really wasn't something that was totally new to many of the people here. We had done the pink instead of the red. We did the pink one. But anyway, we were really ready to go. We were pretty close to a unified K through 12 city-town with BFA, and Fairfield coming in, you know, just made it exactly what I think they wanted. It was a school supervisory union that became a supervisory district. And we benefited, you know, we have all benefited as taxpayers from this because we've been able to take advantage of the discounts, the 5-year discounts. And that, I know, when I talked to the town clerk of the town, and she says that was a real big savings for the town, and I know the city of Fairfield also had savings. So, but we have to recognize that it's only a 5-year declining discount, and it will eventually go away. So we're going to have to be aware of that, and that, you know, as costs go up, you're going to have to deal with that as well. But even though you have a discount now, it will eventually fade away. And the other thing that I've talked to Kevin about this is that we have probably achieved, in fact, I know we've achieved efficiencies, but efficiencies are different than savings. You know, efficiencies can go and use people more effectively or a larger group of people, which is exactly what you've done with, I guess, a foreign language student, a teacher who has gone and been able to go into Fairfield while also continuing at BFA. It's an efficiency. It means you serve more children and you do a better job for the same amount of money. And that's actually the argument, the major argument that was behind Act 46, is that it would provide opportunity to students in lots of places that don't have that opportunity now and do it in a way that would be more efficient. And that, you know, you've done that, and you're doing it in other ways, I'm sure, that I'm not aware of, but I know they're doing it. That's different than savings, where your tax rate goes down. And so you have to be careful when you talk about savings, that that's not the same as efficiencies, because the public sees it as savings as something where things go down, not necessarily better service with the same amount of money. I mean, it's a nomenclature, but it's an important issue to remember when you're talking about what you're trying to accomplish with the students. And other than that, you know, if anyone else has any questions, those are what I think are going on in the legislature. We will see what happens in January. Anyone have any concerns or any things that the board has that they want to see the legislature do or not do.
I have a question. How much of the education fund is from property tax, and how much of it is supplemented by the general fund?
There's a use tax, there's a sales and use, no, there is the sales or use tax, and I think it's on the sale of cars. I'm not sure. They had a lot more go into it in the past, and they've cut some of those out, but it's property taxes is the primary source. There's also about $354 million that goes in from the general fund that's transferred. It has an inflationary index onto it. It's a small index, but it has gone up, so every year it goes up a little bit more. That's the primary source of that, of course, was the income tax. Back in 2010, 2011, maybe it was 2011 when Governor Shumlin came in, he lowered that amount because we had Irene and we had all kinds of things going on there with finances in the state, and he pushed that back to 279 million. So that transfer was rebased about, I don't know, $50 million or something lower. And that's the base that we've been working on since. But you're getting, if not close to 300 million, more than that, 300 million now. But that's the piece that is statutorily required to be the transfer into the ed fund.
So it's statute that property tax support education.
Property taxes support education, and that transfer, it's a pretty large transfer from the general fund.
Okay.
Those are the two big ones. Oh, the lottery goes into it. There's a little bit from here and a little bit from there, but those are the big ones.
Thank you.
So this is some pretty dark news. Our Act 46 discount, if you will be 2 cents less this year. And now with a 7 to 9 cents tax increase, our community could be looking at a 9 to 11% increase without, even if we level fund.
Yeah, and you went back your discount with 8 cents, with an 8 cent increase.
Why did you go up 2 cents
Well,
instead of now?
No.
No,
2 cents because we had a 10% discount last year. 10 cents, excuse me, 10 cents.
Now it's going to go to 8 cents.
And now it's going to go to 8 cents. So right off the bat, our tax rate is going to go up 2 cents from last year.
Oh, got it, okay, 2 cents from
Yeah,
last
the
year.
discount
Yeah,
takes
yeah,
away
there.
every year. Goes-
I was just thinking, I was just doing the math wrong.
Yeah, you can't.
I was doing it right, but I was doing it wrong.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know how they determine in December or November or whatever it is. The tax commissioner writes a letter and says what it's going to go up based on something. Maybe last year's numbers, I don't know. I never could figure out how you did that. We didn't have real budgets and real votes. I know you start working on the budgets earlier, you get numbers into the state early. If they're basing it on that, I'm not really sure. But you really won't know until they get after town meeting day when they have people's budgets voted on. Then they sit down and come up. Then the legislature comes up with the actual tax rate. And there are things that go into the tax rate, again, that are mentioned in this article. There was savings in special education money, and they used that this year. There was money saved in, there was reserves, and they used some of that to keep the tax rate low. There's some people who think that's not an appropriate use of reserves because they're gone. There's tricks you can do with your buckets of money, and
we're running out of buckets.
And tricks.
And tricks.
But that's one way, Lynn, that they can predict that it'll be around an 8 cent increases because, as you said, or alluded to, much of that was one-time money, so they can predict.
Yeah.
They know that they had over $20 million of one-time money that they put in that's going to have to be made up for.
Yes.
So from that they can bring. My question to you is, what do you and your colleagues feel are the major drivers for this, other than this one-time money, for this increase in education?
Well, the chairman of the education committee on the floor during June, when we had our special session to deal with the veto, pointed out that the number one driver is staffing. You know, it's a labor-intensive industry, basically education, and so it's staffing that makes the difference. I mean, you put the benefits together as well, but that's the number one driver. I mean, when I was on the school board, it was, you know, your 70 to 75% of your budget was salaries, and added a little bit of benefits, and certainly went over 75%. You know, that's the problem for everybody. We've had a decline in the number of students, an increase in the number of our staff, and it's been a real conflict to try to figure that out. And I mean, you know, you can sit down and find all sorts of reasons why the staff is really necessary, because there's all kinds of issues that didn't exist maybe 20 years ago. You know, we have drug issues, we have family, you know, dysfunction, you have behavioral issues, special education needs, you know. They're all there and they're all in the pot.
And I would agree with you that it's a staffing issue. Is presently we're somewhere in the area of 4.1 staff members per child, and if we could even get that up to 5 to 1,
Yeah.
we'd save like $75 million. My question, or I guess it would be a comment, is that I urge you and your colleagues to think about that next year. For instance, Chris, I don't know in how many years, but we have that data that you showed me that over a 3 or 4 year period, we're down 15 staff members at BFA. And part of that has been Act 46 and a good use of dealing with attrition as it comes up. And I would just ask the question, is this a case where everybody should be treated equally when it comes time to pay the piper? The people who were good soldiers and did what they needed to do and have lowered staff and have gone through the pain and anguish of Act 46 and come out on the other end, versus the people who haven't done that and whose drivers are $18,000, $20,000 per people. And it's a bit frustrating. When we've done what the state has required, and yet we're treated the same way and asked to pay as much as those who haven't and are the real drivers of that.
Well, we dealt with Act 46 really well, but we had a lot of foundation for it. I mean, the other school system that I know that did really well was the Essex Westford system. But it was something that wasn't brand new to us. It had been discussed in the community for many years. But there's an awful lot of districts and an awful lot of parts of the state where they are not happy with Act 46 and doing everything in their power to try to figure out a way to get around it. And many of them are the small schools. I mean, it's a real problem for a good portion geographically of the state. When I first got elected, I remember going to a Lake Champlain or Northwestern Vermont supervisory meeting that included Addison, Franklin, Chittenden, and Grand Isle counties. We all met, all the new legislators met with, the old legislators met with the superintendents from those districts. And they said we had 1/3 of the supervisory unions and 2/3 of the students or something like that within these 4 counties. That means if you look at it, you have 2/3 of the supervisory unions with 1/3 of the students everywhere else. Now those are the small schools. Those are the people with the really small schools. Those are the, in some cases they've got a bunch of little small schools. They're having meetings with, and even Chittenden County had some of those for a while. But you have that geographic demographic that is real. That Act 46 was really an attempt to deal with. You know, you have schools who had phantom students and small school money, and they really don't want to go and have a larger district. I mean, we never had small schools here, and we never had, you know, we're not really, even Fairfield, which is the smallest, is really not that small. So we're in a better position than most people. how people are going to respond to that. I mean, they are responding to the complaints from their communities who don't want to go and get consolidated, or they're voting it down, they're not sure, they're having 2 and 3 votes, they go back and rearrange it. I mean, there's some district in the middle of the state where it's like musical chairs. Every couple of months, it's a new arrangement. And that, you know, that has an impact on their legislators. So what are they going to do? I don't know.
And I get that, and I don't want to push this too far, but there's a lot of things people around this table don't want to do. But they do it because it's law. And what you're telling me is it's okay to break the law with some people and they're going to push back. And I say, it's the law, and we did it. And I think that has to be looked at. And I know they are to some degree, but we all know of some districts, as you said, that are pushing back, and they're not all geographically far away from each other. But it's just because they want to, you know, they have other reasons. So it would just be my hope that the legislature considers that and pushes back themselves on it.
Well, there is part of Act 46, I think it's in 2019, if you haven't formed something, the state will create one, put you somewhere. And there's some, you know, schools districts that are going to be put someplace. Odd man out. You know.
That's always on the table, that hasn't gone.
That's still in the law, that's still there. You know, whether it's changed, I mean, you can't force another legislature to do what you want to, you know, they can change it any time, but that is still part of the Act 46.
What's the possibility that could be changed? Okay, probability.
You know, I don't know. It's, we had the caps, we came back that January, immediately we tried to figure a way to get out of the caps, and the law was changed. There was another act passed that changed that. And by the time it got changed, most of the schools had complied with it, and, you know, financially, that's what they felt they had to do. You know, the only school in this county that was above that meeting was BFA. And BFA did whatever BFA had to do. And of course, now that you're in the Maple Run district, we've probably smoothed out that cost per pupil, so you probably are well below the average as a group, which is probably a good thing, because it's... I don't think they're going to put caps on again, though. But you never know.
But I guess I always read little snippets here and there where there's legislators who want to do some kind of modification or revocation of Act 46. Yeah, and I just wondering, is that even possible? I mean, I can't see where it would be.
I don't think so at this point, because an awful lot of schools have gone through the process.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, not just the easy ones like us in Essex, but a lot of other schools have done it. There's some people out there really unhappy. Like I say, it's musical chairs. It's one district. It sounds like there's two towns and one's out, or 3 towns and one's out, and then they rearrange, and it's 2 towns want to do it, another 2 towns don't, and they want back in again. And, I mean, so I don't know, but I don't think Act 46 is going to be repealed. I think we're too far down the road. I don't know how they're going to keep that stated position in 2019. That may be pushed out a year. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm just more concerned about it being tweaked. You know.
It's hard to tell.
Yeah, I mean.
You know.
Well, I hope not. I mean.
So just one comment. I think maybe you made it sound too easy for us to become a consolidated district. It wasn't falling off of a log. There was a lot of work put into it. It wasn't a trivial effort. And there was a lot of debate. So although the structure fit us well, I wouldn't say that it was just an easy thing for us to do, that we've been leading up to it the whole time, because that's not how it went at all.
I understand that. I sat here as a school board member, as a trustee. It was not a school board. I was a trustee and was involved in the 89, 92, and then 2004. So I was involved in all three of those, trying to either make a K through 12 St. Albans Unified System, K through 12, City Town BFA, and then eventually with the creation of BFA as a union high school, where it went into the supervisory unit. And that wasn't easy. It actually started back in the 70s, when we moved the town into the same supervisory union, because it was with a different supervisory union at the time, so that we could, in fact, at least be in the same SU when the time came to make BFA into a union high school, go wherever that was. So it's been around a long time. And, you know, I was a little surprised it actually happened because I had that history, so.
So
But-
I have one other question, not on Act 46. We just had Burlington teachers go on strike. Early this morning, South Burlington averted a strike. And I'm starting to hear talk again about no strikes legislation coming forward, which I think is fine because a lot of states, most states do that.
Yeah.
My only concern is that the last time this discussion came up, they were going to settle it with binding arbitration. And that's something that gives me a lot of heartburn.
Yeah,
When
well,
someone who's not elected steps in and decides
yeah.
how the money's going to be spent.
Okay, that was Kurt Wright's bill. He proposed it. It was actually the same year we did Act 46, and he wanted to put it into Act 46, and they didn't want it in Act 46, the leadership. So, but they promised him we would get a chance to bring it to the floor. So he brought it to the floor. So this was what, 4 years ago, 3-4 years ago, and he did not have binding arbitration in his bill. He had it originally, but he took it out. What he had was basically you eliminate imposition by the boards, you eliminate strikes by the teachers, and I can't remember if this was in it at the time, but the one he's proposing now with Joe Banning is going to have open public meetings for negotiations with the original proposals. So there will be open negotiations, public negotiations. I don't know how far that's going to have to go in before you don't have public meetings, because obviously you can't negotiate in public, but at least the initial...
We did.
I didn't do it. But that's his proposal, is to have public meetings for all of the negotiations, so it would be, so everybody would be able to know what's going on. Now, as you said, we're only one of like 13 or 14 states that do allow strikes by teachers. We're the only ones in New England. Most states don't allow it for the same reason we don't allow the Vermont state employees that go on strike. They're essential employees. You can't have snow plowers and people for the correction officers and the DCF social workers and public safety people. You can't have them go on strike. They have to work. So it's the same logic for teachers. They're an essential state employee, an essential community employee. And what they do with the VSEA, is a very powerful, strong union. It has something like 9,000 members. The state of Vermont is one of the biggest employers, if not the biggest employer in the state, followed very closely by the public schools. And what they do is they go into, if they get to impasse, they go to like the Vermont Labor Relations Board. And they present the facts, and then there's a decision. It's not binding arbitration where someone comes in as an arbitrator from outside. And that is what, that they do not want to put binding, Kurt doesn't want to put binding arbitration in. And he sees it as working sort of like the state employees. Now that vote only lost by one vote, that bill. So, you know, with the things that we've had going on with Burlington and South Burlington, that may be something that actually has a chance of passing. I really couldn't predict, but things come up in the legislature that you didn't anticipate sometimes. But he had a pretty good, only losing by one vote is a really pretty good response to something that's really controversial.
I guess I wouldn't be having a labor board make a decision.
You wouldn't?
No.
Well, that's how they do the VSEA. And that would probably be the similar model that would be used for teachers.
Understanding that, reading Secretary Holbrook's article, the governor has indicated, at least to her, and I don't know to anybody else, that he's willing to work with school boards, legislators and everything. The words are fine. Doing it is another issue. And I think that if the governor does do it, and I think you folks should remind him that it should be across all venues and not chosen few, as a governor has a tendency to do sometimes.
Well,
So that
most of the
it's
things
not.
that were in education were pretty well debated in the committee and on the floor. He did sit down this summer after the veto on the budget to go and work on this health care insurance, statewide insurance proposal. And he did meet with a select group of legislators on that. You know, the speaker, Tim Ash, who was the head of the Senate, and what he called the two deans of the legislature, the two longest running members of the legislature, which was Dick Mazza and Alice Emmons. And then, you know, we had Jeff Banning there from the VEA and other people there from his staff. But yeah, that's what they did. But it was well debated in committee and on the floor.
We can't continue to have all these gives without some gets. And in reality, be taxed beyond what you are because you happen to be in a position where you have to spend a little more than somebody else. That's almost the reason why they had the Boston Tea Party, I think. But thank you for listening.
Yeah, I hear you now. Yeah. And I want to say one thing that Maple Lawn has done is it's made a really historic decision. Maybe Al and I are the only one who really appreciate this, but BFA never had any busing ever at all. In fact, it never had any snow days for many years because it didn't have any busing. And so you're actually doing the busing for BFA. That is a first. In 90-something years?
Sure.
I don't know.
Some of that was done a little bit before Maple Run, but we didn't get Maple Run.
Yeah, well, then we had buses. We had buses, and but you had to pay for them, or they were.
Even without giving them a buck.
Really?
Yeah.
It's a $3 ticket or something for.
No, seriously, we did. It was a year, right? A couple years before Maple Run that we had the bus going to the Fairfield connection.
Yeah, they hit Fairfield way back when I was there.
When in the good old days, Bakersfield had to get them half part way, and they gave them $1, and they got them all the rest of the way to get there.
Well, Fairfield always ran their own bus line.
Fairfield paid for it.
They paid for it.
You paid for your own bus?
They own their own buses and they paid for it when they sold them.
Yeah, I knew there was a bus involved, and I wasn't sure whether because Georgia had one, and I don't know if Sheldon had one, but it was a ticket you bought, a $3 book or something, I don't know. But it's, this whole process is all brand new.
Any other questions? Okay,
Thanks for coming.
I certainly want to thank you for taking the time and giving us your insight and listening to our concerns. Welcome back anytime.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah. If anybody has any questions, I know I've had Leanne and I talk to Kevin fairly often. And if anybody wants any questions or anything, just give me a call. I'll be happy to talk to you. Especially if you hear something's coming up, and it helps me go and know where you stand and what's your concern, so I can bring that to the table.
You know I have your email.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn.
All right, we'll move to item 6 is the consent agenda.
Thanks. Good job.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
In the consent agenda, we have the approval of the minutes for 20 September. We have the media packets. field trips and resignations, all of which are in your attachments. So if there's no objections, these items will be adopted. Are there any objections to adopting these in the consent agenda? Looks like there are no objections, so these items are adopted. Move on to item 7A, support staff ratification. Mike, do you have anything you want to speak to on this?
No, we did this a while ago. I think it just took some time, Martha, to just get it together.
Yep.
We had mediation, and like any contract, any deal, some people are, no one's ever really happy and no one's ever really sad. So there was something, Martha, that I recall about the insurance, where we did something a little bit different than the teachers, other than complying to the state's statutes. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So the difference that Mike is talking about is the amount that is paid for by the district for the out-of-pocket costs for the employees. Since prior to the meeting for our mediation is when the new law came into place with the recommendations of the out-of-pocket costs, some out-of-pocket costs being mandated to come from the employees. So that was the stance the board took in that final mediation round. The final agreement was tweaked a little bit, so we don't completely comply with the Act 85. The family plan, instead of out-of-pocket, employee out-of-pocket cost of $1,200, the board agreed to make it $1,000. But other than that, it basically follows what Act 85 was recommending.
Okay, so I look for a motion to ratify the contract for the support staff.
So moved.
Second. Mike, thank you. Any discussion or questions on that? We each have a copy. Hearing none. We have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Contract's ratified, 7-0. Brings us to new business, 8A, facility use. I'll turn that over to Kevin.
I had an interesting talk the other day from the officials who run the Maple Fest. And they came to me because they didn't exactly know what to do. They use our schools, as you probably know. And now that we're Maple Run, they weren't sure exactly where to go. So we had a very, very nice talk, and it was an enlightening talk to me. And it made me realize that, and now that we're Maple Run, there's an issue around the fact that we have different fee structures for our different schools. Some charge a facility fee. Almost everybody charges a custodian fee if there needs to be custodians for whatever event. And now that we're Maple Run, I'm thinking, I just want to get some temperature from the board, but I'm thinking we should look at a consistent fee structure. So whether you're going to BFA or you're going to city school or St. Tech or Fairfield, we have the same structure. And I'm willing to have the administration look at that. I've already obtained from everybody the applications that each school uses, and that's where I found out there are significant differences there. So what I'd like to do, and again, I'd just like to hear from you guys if you agree, is have the administration look at these and come up with a structure that's the same for each school. So like a Maple Fest, when they do go, if you don't know, they use SATEC, they use VFA, and they use City. And so people like that will be able to have the same structure no matter where they go, which I think would make it easier. I would also tell you that as I talk to administrators, my gut feeling is that we might want to look at how we charge people. Right now, again, depending on the school, no matter who goes in, gets charged the same. I'm wondering if we should look at this a little bit different depending on whether they're community people, our community, versus maybe a group that comes in from Massachusetts and wants to use, that's for profit and wants to use it. And kind of look at that a little bit. And I think, again, at Maple Fest, it's a nonprofit group, all volunteers, and we might want to just look at the fact that treating them may be a little different than a for-profit.
Can we ask questions?
Sure.
This is just a discussion at this point, right?
This is just discussion today, and that'll just make us see where we move forward with it.
When you say a big difference between the prices, are we talking hundreds of dollars? Are we talking $50?
Well, for instance, one school, and I'm saying this off the top of my head, so if I'm completely, I may be a little bit off, but one school has a fee of $200 for the use of the space, and then additional monies for custodians if there's a need for custodians, which could add up. There's another school that generally doesn't charge a facility fee at all, especially if it's a community group. I think all of our schools charge a custodial fee if it's on a weekend and we have to bring in custodians, and then it's and everybody understands that. So that's, when I say significant, that's what I mean. One would be 200, one would be 0. Some people treat community a little different than non-community. Others treat everybody the same. So it's those type of things that we need to make it a little bit more consistent.
That's the second question. Do we often get requests from for-profit businesses from Massachusetts? Or, I mean, I know that was an example, but is that like something?
Probably in the Performing Arts Center.
Performing, that's what I bet at the FA
I know
you do.
one for sure.
Yeah.
It was a traveling dance group that put on dance performances, and they had the local youth come in and perform, and they won prizes, I believe, of some sort. But we have had out-of-state folks, primarily for the performing arts. Right.
Out of community.
Out of community.
Out of community, not necessarily Franklin, Fair Valley County dance groups, for instance.
And I'm assuming,
Hang on.
We do have dance groups from Franklin County and from Chittenden County that come in there, and not our programs.
So do you treat
For the
them?
PAC, and I treat them the same way. We have a contract with the Performing Arts Center, so that was set up when it was created.
When it was built, yeah.
So there's a fee for IT manager, there's a fee for custodian, and then there's a fee for the rental of the auditorium itself if they're a nonprofit.
And that's all set,
Yes,
so everybody is the same.
Yep.
It doesn't matter where you're coming from.
right.
Okay, that's just curious.
I was just curious how Collins Pearly does it. I mean,
I
They're not
should have
part of
added-
this. They're
I'm
not in
when
this.
I'm talking about this, I'm not,
Totally
as we
separate.
learned at the last meeting, Collins Pearly is its own animal.
yeah.
It has to be.
And when I'm not, yeah.
But it really has to be.
No, it does, but I just.
I wasn't
bring in
considering
revenues.
Collins Pearly because it's in that gray area.
Do they have a model that would help us?
I
I'd be happy to share that model if anybody looks at it. I think there might be some things that are relevant, but there are a lot that wouldn't be. But certainly, it's all open, and it's been in use.
So I think it's a good idea to be consistent, but not only on fee structures, but on all the criteria. In other words, you wouldn't want to have somebody turned down at one school and then approved at another school. So it should be consistent across the board as to whether you're going to allow it at all. And then the fee schedule should be
Well, who makes the
consistent.
decision? Each principal?
Well, we already have a policy for that.
This is, and then there's procedures though within each school separate, that's the, right?
Yeah, we're talking about the procedures. The policy is very clear about what we look at for people we allow in and not. We're really looking just at the fee structure, which is would be under the procedures.
So you're saying that the criteria for who we allow in and not is the same across all the schools?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they were all adopted. We just did this in 2014 and 2015, if I'm remembering correctly, and we made it a common policy, but we took Collins Burley out, if I'm
Right.
remembering from our policy conversations around
So that's the
this.
safety.
And we had some good discussions on that, I remember.
Right, I remember, yeah, we had great
And,
discussions.
I feel very comfortable on that. So we're not talking, and that's all the same in all schools.
So, but the fee structure's outside of the policy in terms of like who we allow and like what we're allowed to do within that space. But the procedure's really where the fee structure comes in, right?
Right.
So
Which is not as you well know, it's really not a board purview. It's something that administration could do. I felt the need to just bring it to you and see how you felt as far as.
you're just asking if we think it should be, now that it's a one district, if we should
And-
try to create some consistency
Right.
around the fee structure. Are you also asking for consistency around the procedures? Or just because if the fee structure is part of the procedures that the administration implements in their own buildings, are we looking at everybody's procedures and trying to create common procedures to answer Jim's questions about if one school says yes to a group?
Yeah.
Yes.
So what I'm hearing is those are already common.
Those are already what?
The policy is common. The procedures is somewhat different, and the fee structure is included within the procedure.
Isn't the policy what's in our packet?
The policy in our packet, we do not have the procedures from each one of the individual buildings.
So,
Is that our review of the standards?
are we ready for a different question or?
Yeah, no, I'm done my questioning.
I don't think it should end up costing the school money to to have the event take place. So if there's a cost for a custodian or a cost for whatever on the type of event, I think that should be incorporated somehow in whatever the fee structure is. There might be some types of events that they just need the facility without any teachers. They just need a room maybe or something, that there could be sort of a scale of fees or
I mean,
something.
there's always going to be a cost.
Yeah.
So we have to recoup that.
Right, we have to recoup the cost, I think. I mean, it's not like we're trying to make money, except for Collins Pearly, who might be trying to make money and we want them to.
I don't know.
Well, yeah, but you gotta sustain you're trying not to lose money.
You just heard Lynn, right?
I heard that, yeah, we all heard that. And I probably misspoke when I said make money, but you know what I was
Yes.
trying to point out? We just don't want it to be a losing venture for us. And also that the liability piece, right, we want to make sure. But that's covered, I think, here.
Keep in mind that Collins Pearly is not-for-profit.
Yeah, I was told that now twice. I've got it.
I want to make sure you get it from the
Yeah,
right.
it does. What is that called? The 403B?
401c3.
All right, so here's my question. Is Maple Run-
Whatever.
Thank
You
you.
guys are talking
Not
about
an
this
accountant.
policy. Is it a Maple Run policy, or are we talking about the old Franklin Central policy?
It's,
Comment.
I believe it's still a Franklin Central policy that will be coming to you, but
Okay.
we don't see, we just did it last year, we don't see any major.
So the policy I'm looking at here indicates that administration may deny use of the facilities for profit institutions. Is that correct? That's what I'm reading here.
The building administration may deny any application for use of facilities or terminate an individual or group's use for.
And then I look down at
That was where you were just reading.
events G, events or meetings for private or profit entities.
Private for-profit entities.
Well, having read the facility usage thing that we received on our material. I think that covers everything that you need to cover. The only other thing you need is a fee structure. But when you're doing a fee structure, for instance, the use of the Performing Arts Center at BFA is certainly should be more than, say, the small gym at the city school.
And I think it would be incorporated in the structure anyway, because you'd have to probably have electrical and, I mean, they're getting a performing arts center for those other things that it has to offer, not just space usually. When you mention events or meetings of private for-profit entities, obviously we've learned that I'm challenged related to for-profit and not-for-profit. So is bingo for profit?
Depends on if it's going to a not-for-profit
I mean,
entity.
can somebody hold a bingo? Can somebody hold a bingo at city school for
It says may
the Elks
deny.
Club or something? It's,
Was the
Or Elks Club charity.
profit?
No, the Elks Club could be a
Silver
non-profit.
I'm
Towers.
pretty sure they are, yeah.
But it just says may deny, so they're not, you know, it just says they can make, it's basically leaving the administration in charge of deciding who or who not they allow to rent
Yeah, I
the
know, so I
space.
think we ought to have
bring us back, bring us
administration.
back, yeah, bring us back.
I think we should have administration look at this policy H3, because it's not from last year, it's from 2.5 years ago,
2015, 2015.
2015, April of 2015.
Yeah, right, yeah. But then adopted. I'm
And
just
then
when it was adopted.
look what should be in
SUI.
policy versus what you think should be in procedures. And I think what Kevin's asking is, do we support consistency across the schools when it comes to our facilities? And I'm hearing that we do.
I'd like to see the procedures personally, like what are the different procedures with
And
your.
we'll certainly look at that, but I do remind you that that's an administrative procedures or administrative function.
Right.
Well,
And of course, we'll bring that in and show you. The question was, if you, as we're looking to get the temperature of the board, if you like consistency, which we presently don't have.
yes,
And I'm hearing yes. So we'll take it from there. That'll be Kathy's first thing when she comes back Monday.
why, what is she doing this, what are you doing this weekend? Monday's a holiday, Kathy.
But you can work on it over the weekend.
What? I get a day off that schools don't?
It used to be a holiday, it's not anymore.
Moving on. All right, item 8.2, we have a discipline action that under 1 VSA 313A4 belongs in executive session, so we will move that to executive session. Moving on to other business, have warrants or attachment 9A. For a motion to approve the warrants.
So moved.
Thank you, Mike.
So,
Thank you, Al. Any questions on the warrants? Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, approved 7.5 to 0. Brings us to Kevin's report.
Well, I was going to talk to you a little bit about
Thank you.
about government issues around taxes, but I don't think I have to do that now. We've heard quite a bit. I will say that there's a lot of concern about that around the state, and we are going to have to deal with that when the time comes.
I sort of feel like they're going back on their word.
Oh, yeah.
Totally true.
That was the healthcare thing.
But
No, it's like everything, you know, they pass a law and then they go back and change it. The people that follow it get in trouble.
most definitely, but when the time comes, I've already talked a bit, and we're going to be talking more as administrative staff, that we need to look at that immediately and start preparing for that. Because as we well know, much of this stuff actually won't be voted on or decided from the legislature until it's too late for us. So we need to be proactive on that. Otherwise, you saw my newsletter, but you don't really need to see it in my newsletter because you experienced it this evening. The construction in the area. However,
Good thing you're not a for-profit. Got that one right.
Not for profit.
excellent. However, we're all keeping upbeat because we know it's just going to make the place better. We're going to have new sidewalks, we'll have new sewer system, new water system, supposedly down the road, a park down here at the end of the area, a little green space. Market Street will be repaved. So we're going to have something that looks nice, and I think we'll be just upgrading the area. So, and we're pleased with that. And incidentally, the workers have been phenomenal. And I think those of us who work here, they've just been great, and they're apologetic, but they've been very helpful.
How much longer until it finishes?
We're really now looking, I think we're talking mid-November before they get everything finished, because as you know, or you may know, they're doing work on Stebbins, changing that corner there to make it easier to make the turn. Market hasn't really, it started, but it's got more work to do. So it's still going to take some time, but it'll be worth it. The last thing I have relative to construction, and I guess we didn't do it tonight, but we will do it in the future, is show you our new space with early ed. And that's looking real nice. I was in there today, Michelle, and I like what you guys have done with the front. Open, it's comfortable.
Thank you for the pumpkin too, by the way.
And yes, I brought a pumpkin over. So,
Just
it's
one?
looking nice. What?
Just one?
Well, we carry it through the construction.
One a day, it's gonna carry one a day.
It's always the cat.
There you go.
It's always the cat.
Or from somebody's house.
Look what you started, Michelle. And that's it, unless you have questions.
Just, is any of this construction going to shut you guys down? They can do all the water and sewer while it's still open?
They've done it early in the morning. Sometimes we may have getting here at 8 o'clock, it might still be off, and we may have to run the water to get the rust out and whatever, but it's worked. It's been fine.
The pictures from last board meeting are great. I don't know who took those.
Mitch did.
Yeah, they're really good.
Any other questions? Okay, we have the board and administrator handouts. And central office administrator reports. Start with Julie.
It's been a very busy fall, which we like, or else we'd go work somewhere else, I guess. We love this busyness. Spent last Friday with Shannon and Jill and a number of colleagues at a training given by Leanne Young on grading, assessment, and feedback to all learners. And there was a lot of focus on proficiency-based graduation requirements and the work that needs to be done there. That was a great sort of jumping off point. That presenter is actually going to be working with the Agency of Ed on making personalized learning plans sort of aligned with graduation requirements. Some of the work we've already done here, and I made a connection with her. Actually, I'm the one who invited her to the state, so I'm pretty excited that she's connected with John Spinney and the Agency of Ed around that, because I think a lot of the work we've done here around proficiency-based and personalized learning plans are actually out front quite a bit from some of the other schools. So I think that's exciting. And one of the other things that I wanted to highlight is a lot of the work that's happening this fall around transition to adulthood in the field of special education. I spent this week at a number of team meetings for students with significant disabilities who are looking at graduating and becoming adults, the world outside of public education for students or individuals with significant disabilities is very different. It's a very different landscape for families. And BFA does a fabulous job working with partners to really prepare families over multiple years so that they know what the funding issues are, what the assessments need to look like, and help make it really seamless so that families and the young adult really understands what job is going to be like, what support they're going to have in the workplace, what vocational rehabilitation is needed, guardianship issues, all of those things. There's a fair at St. Mike's next week for practitioners to come together and learn about all of the opportunities out there in transition. We are having a department meeting next week with voc rehab, Weber, I couldn't tell you what the initials mean, so I'm sorry, and some of the other agencies that are going to come and present to guidance in the special ed department on a new 5-year grant research study where they're doing some more intensive work with students with disabilities to have greater opportunity so they can track and see if that actually leads to improvements in kids' college enrollment and employment opportunities after high school. So those are some things that we're popping up.
Questions? I would just add, since Julie spoke, for those who may not have noticed, Julie, as we enhance this room, Julie actually took it upon herself to take that right behind Joanne and Jill there, and that's now a blackboard.
Whiteboard.
That's whiteboard. Thank you.
It's not just someone writing on the wall.
It's not just-
It's a whiteboard paint?
Yes. We wrote the password or lack thereof up there. I haven't experimented with it further, but coming to a board meeting near you, if we have to draw something to explain ourselves.
Any shirt comes on.
That's great. You have a race on?
That's what we gotta experiment with.
But
Without testing it out.
actually, I believe Biscuit actually donated the paint to us.
Yes. And they have large rooms with the whole walls
Who's this?
painted with that
Vermont
paint.
Board of Insurance.
And they work. It works really well.
Yeah.
So,
So we're trusting
The whole wall.
well, we figured we'd start small.
Right. Good. Okay, Martha.
Very cool.
We know what we're doing in executive session.
Where are the markers?
I'll bring them.
Dry erase.
Yeah. I'm excited.
So, well, the business office has been busy. The last 2 weeks, we had auditors in the building. So basically, when the auditors are there, you get absolutely nothing done because you're answering questions or pulling files or doing all kinds of running around for the auditors. So when they leave at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, then pretty much everybody stays for the hour or so just to kind of get caught up on their normal work. So that's been kind of crazy, but we do it every year. We also are supporting the special ed administrators in starting the service plan, which is due October 15, which means we need to pull salary and benefit information for all the special ed staffing, plus all the other costs that are related with special ed. Also working with the HR department, seeing as how Kathy's been out, to get the new year running, and especially right now we're working on meetings at the different schools. Jermaine has been going out and meeting with staff to inform them on the enrollment for the new health insurance plans, and we've been to some trainings on the different HRA, HSA options and how that all works. So we've been kind of immersed in health insurance issues in the last couple of weeks and will be for the next 2 months. But other than that, we're just plugging away, doing what we need to do.
Okay, thank you. Questions for Martha? Jill?
Okay. I would just like to piggyback on what Julie had said about the conference that we attended with Leanne Young. And one of the biggest takeaways, I think, for our team was the message that all students belong to all of us. So I thought that that was really powerful, and I was glad to have that opportunity to attend that workshop. The biggest thing that I've been working on lately, which begins tomorrow, the second edition, is ELL training for our teachers at BFA. And Chris and Shannon have been very supportive in terms of scheduling and finding subs so that we can get teachers adequate training for modifications for our ever-growing ELL population.
And ELL is?
English language learners. Thank you, Kevin. And so our numbers are growing. We do have 5 more students enrolled in our schools this year than we did last year. And what that means, understanding modifications and accommodations for those students. So thank you to Chris and to Shannon. I know that's going to be embedded in our professional development as we continue to move forward. So I will be there tomorrow, BFA, at 7:15 for the training. Looking forward to it. The second piece that I wanted to talk about is I meet weekly with Amy Kuntz, and we have been working on this big umbrella of the wellness committee, so whole child, whole school, and what that looks like. And I do have a couple of announcements that I just wanted to share with you. The next wellness policy meeting, which this conversation started in late spring, early June at one of our board meetings, was that there's interest from parents and community members in weighing in on what this policy looks like for our kids. So that meeting is taking place on October 17th. And I know some people in this room are signed up and on that participation list, so thank you. And in addition to that, we are also sending a team of 8 teachers, administrators, and 2 children to the Roland Conference at UVM, and we are very excited about that work. It's October 26th, and the emphasis this year is on diversity, gender health, equity, and so those are some of the big wellness pieces that Amy and I have been working on, and other teachers from across the district. So very excited about that work.
What was the name of the conference, Jill?
It's the Rowland Conference. It's at UVM on the 26th. And and actually that was a really interesting process because there was so much interest. Of course, we would take more teams and hope to in the future, but as many of you are aware, we are still having a bit of a sub-crisis in getting substitutes for teachers to come, but I'm sure the information that the teachers and kids and administrators learn, they'll come back to their individual buildings and share out. So we're looking forward to that. And just on a side note, we're still learning more about what SBAC testing is going to look like this year. We know that there is going to be an assessment in PE, which is new, which hasn't quite been designed yet, but more information is going to be rolled out on October 20th at the SHAPE conference in Killington, and I will be attending. And another change that we've talked a little bit about is the SBAC will be taking place in grades 3 through 9 for ELA and for mathematics, which is a shift because 11th graders used to take that test. So there's been some changes. We're still learning more about that information, but those are some of the big picture things that I've been working on.
Questions for Jill?
Exciting. Exciting, very exciting.
There's a couple. So on the SBAC, it changed. Basically, the 11th graders don't take it, the 9th graders should.
Right, and so that's for the ELA and for the math, and then for the NGSS science test, there's also been a change. So 5th graders, it used to be 4th grade, so 5th graders now are taking it again. They thought they were getting out of it for a few years. Surprise, kids, sorry about that. 8th graders and 11th graders will take the NGSS science test this year.
Okay. And this the wellness meeting on 17 October, That's a community, did you say that's?
So that's our community and parent group. It'll be at SATEC. It's in conference room B, and it's at 4:30. If anyone else would like to join.
And how did we get the word out to the community about joining that?
So, yeah, that's a really good question. At the board meeting in early June, late May, I can't remember which one it was, there was interest, and parents and other community members expressed an interest in wanting to go back through and making our program, our policy a little bit more vibrant. And with that work, we've been looking at other wellness policies throughout the state of Vermont to see what that can look like. So we have a list that's been generated. I know that Brenda has a copy of the emails of parents that are interested and teachers that are interested, and if someone else wants to join, I'm sure.
So did that list come from that meeting?
From that meeting, right. There was volunteers, and then I do believe Kathy may have had another list that was added to it along the way. So we've got a pretty group. We've got 12 people. It's a pretty group. But we're excited because it's people who don't even necessarily have children in the school system, but they're into wellness and they understand the whole child and healthy eating, and also with that the mindfulness piece that's a part of wellness.
And are all three communities represented? Do we know?
Yes, all three communities. Yes, they sure are. We've had one meeting, and this is the second follow-up meeting.
Okay.
And there was a grant from the health department, right?
Yeah.
The whole child, whole school, whole community.
That's right, and Amy and I are working on that together. Yeah.
Good. Thank you. Kathy, we're going to let you off tonight.
Thank you. Hope to see you all on Monday.
No one see me, I'm off.
So really? Like you actually have that day off?
Columbus Day.
Columbus Day.
Doesn't everybody?
Joey.
Well, yeah, they're disputing whether or not that
Disputing what Columbus did.
Yeah.
I don't care at all. It's like Bennington Battle Day.
And so,
Okay.
so I have some exciting news, and I haven't even had a chance to share this with the other administrators at this point. I was contacted by an NEA, National Education Association representative last week to inform me or to see if there was any interest in this district to receive a grant to work specifically. It's for let me back up. There are two schools in our state who the NEA was looking at districts. Our district was one of them. It's a grant-funded para-educator mentoring program that we would receive consultation, mentees, education for 3 years from this grant. So I thought, okay, well that's interesting, and I put it out to the administrators, and yeah, okay, let's get some more information. So I was looking at it tonight, and it's actually, Vermont is part of a 9-state consortium who are receiving Great Public Schools funds. This is a $29.5 million fund nationwide. So we've been trying to get a hold of the person who originally contacted me, and we scheduled a phone date tomorrow so that I could get more information from her to bring to the team. So this would be an opportunity to provide a higher level of education and mentoring to the pairs in all of our schools. So stay tuned, because I definitely need to have more information that I can share with other administrators regarding this. But I thought, oh, this is kind of cool, and then I went and did a little research and thought, oh, this is a really big deal. So, and other than that, interagency work, lots of that, service coordination for families and kids, lots of work in the schools. Great. I just want to send out a thank you to all of our administrators in the schools, because there are some tremendous problem solving going on right now to get kids what they need to get them in a place where they're ready to access academic learning. So, thank you. You guys are a great team.
Questions for Joanne? Michelle?
I want some of the paint for our new space, so maybe it'll be done by next week. I've been invited to attend the Federal Preschool Expansion Grant Conference on behalf of Vermont, which is coming up in 2 weeks. And we're serving around 65 students in that full-day program for 4-year-olds in the district currently, between city school and town school. So we're the largest district in the state at this point, utilizing that opportunity for our kids. And again, the programs for 4-year-olds who are eligible for free and reduced lunch and a little bit above and beyond that cap. So I'll be at that conference with a group from AOE. We have been asked for feedback through a survey on what's working well and what's not working well with Act 166, which is the Vermont state law that allows us to serve 3 and 4-year-olds for 10 hours a week, and it also gives us the structure to send tuition funding with children wherever they go, as long as it's a pre-qualified private site. So Joan and I are actually going to go testify in Montpelier in addition to the survey that we're working on. And so some of the things that we know is working well is having the funding there, having family choice for families to choose from is working well. Some of the concerns still are around children who are eligible for special education, because the law does not allow, it would allow, but there's a lot of logistical things around that. But if a child is on an IEP, it says we may serve them in a private partner site in our education, in our LEA, so in our district. But if a family is in Montpelier or Waterbury, or because under Act 166 they can go anywhere in the state as long as it's pre-qualified, we might run into some hardships trying to figure out how to do that. And so it feels somewhat discriminatory to tell families, like, yes, we'll pay your tuition, but you know, the special education needs of your child are not going to be met in that situation. So that's something that I'm not sure what the answer is for that, but it's an issue. The other big issue with it right now is no matter whether children are in a part-day program or a full-day program, we only count them for a 0.46 ADM. So we only get not quite half of a full student ADM, even if they are there full day, the same hours the kindergarten is there. So that's another piece to that. And I think the big thing, especially in light of where we're at financially, you know, the state basically mandated school districts add 2 grade levels to their school, you know, to who we serve. So we're serving 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds in addition to K to 12. And we're still working on being able to have the capacity to do that. We're still not there yet. And so that's happening at the same time that we are getting word that we need to level fund, and you know, that there's extra, you know, all of the other things happening financially. So it's almost like it's being treated like 2 separate things, and it's not.
2 grade levels were added to the education funds then.
Right.
Essentially.
There's only 1 grade with the students, right? Because they're less than 1%, or more than half the students.
Right. Right, so funding back to us is that, but the expenses that we put into our budget is to accommodate for 2 grade levels.
It takes a lot more adults to manage 3-year-olds than it does when they can actually follow directions and understand how to keep themselves safe. So you need a lot of adults to make sure that kids are safe.
Yeah, they have the mobility of a teenager.
I think sometimes even more.
Yeah, and they're fast.
They're
But they don't have, the reasoning ability and the cognitive ability, and they don't have the understanding of what consequences are. So we're trying to front load all that and teach them. So those are some of the things that I think we'll talk about both in the survey and when we.
And also the fact that having the kids in for these 2 years, it's making a difference. We're seeing a difference for kids being ready, more ready as they're getting older.
Readiness.
Yeah.
And this is the message you guys are going to take them up
That's
with.
what we wanted.
Yeah.
But the extension grant was a little bit better structured in terms of how it went about it than Act 166.
And that kindergarten readiness score, that's tracked right now by the state education agency. Is that something that we can see at some point?
It is. It's hard to look back at trend lines though, because the tool for that has changed so often, and the questions have been tweaked so often that you're comparing apples to oranges if you go back too far. I think the last 2 or 3 years it's been fairly consistent.
That was when we started our program.
But that's when we started it. Yeah. So
most of our stuff is more anecdotal than anything else, and it's just what we're seeing.
Well, that, and we've identified a large increase in kids eligible for special ed, basically because they weren't here before.
Right. And so we're catching them early. You're catching them early.
They're here because they're all day.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Families need all day.
That's good data.
yeah.
That's good data.
That is good data. Yeah.
I mean, it goes back to that question when they asked us, why does education cost so much? You need the people on the ground to do this work, and there's nobody else that can do it, except for humans.
Well, the state keeps adding unfunded mandates.
And then they ask us to cap our budgets.
Superintendents several years ago identified 36. So now we have 37. So.
Yeah.
In the long run, it's better for our society, though. So.
Yes, it is.
Question? Sure.
Michelle, you said that you're still working towards getting everything, set up for this. Are you finding any shortcomings in finance to achieve that, completing the setup for the 3 to 4-year-old?
Well, we've been building it into the budget as we've needed to, and we've accessed whatever grants we can access to help alleviate some of the costs of that. But those grants aren't going to last forever, and they're going to be disappearing at the same time, potentially, that we are looking at.
Will that be part of the testimony, or I don't know if that's
Yeah,
part of the,
it needs to be
tell them that we need this more than tomorrow?
And the other big piece about what's not working is all of the mandates around child care licensing that are, and that's the stuff. That's the stuff. It's just, it's cumbersome, it's redundant, and a lot of, one of their suggestions is, because they define our classroom and our staff as like the pre-K classroom, is that we either need a walking field trip form from parents to go to the nurse, the gym, the library, all of these things, or we need to sign them out of our classroom before we go. So if you have a child in crisis or a child having a seizure, you're supposed to sign them out of the classroom before they can see the nurse. And so it's things like that it just doesn't make sense in a public school building when we're working as a school community to serve all kids.
It's still red tape.
Yeah.
Huge.
Anybody else? Thank you, Michelle. Okay, principals. Angela.
I just had one item that I wanted to share with the board. We had students come in and present on Odyssey of the Mind last year, and we opened it up, our coordinator, Lynn Tatro, she opened it up to all the schools and worked and shared the information out. So right now she has enough students across between St. Albans City, SATEC, and Fairfield to have 2 primary teams, 2 Division I teams, and 1 Division II team. Each team has between 5 and 7 students. So, and there's, a mix across all the schools. Each of the schools has to enter because they make you do it that way. But anyway, it's a great opportunity. So obviously, there's a number of kids from Fairfield that, maybe wouldn't have been able to participate, but now because we're doing this all together. So I just wanted to mention it. It's just a nice kind of outcome of, the consolidation and showing us working together. And it's an opportunity for kids that wouldn't have always been there. So
are kids from the different schools working together, or are they separated by teams, or are they on the same team?
Well, it's based on their age, the different groupings. So there's going to be kids, from different schools. I think, a lot of the kids are from SATEC, but, we've had a lot of teams, and, Lynn's a parent with us, so that makes sense. But I think there's I think she said right now 5 or 6 students from Fairfield and a handful from City School. But City School wouldn't have been able to field a team with, 3 kids, so this is great. So there's going to be mixed, kids from different schools on the teams. And she's working, and she also has volunteers across the different towns for parents, because it's volunteers. So it's just, it's just getting started. They're going to, get the coaches together and do some of the training. But I just thought that was, just a great, example of some of the things, the opportunities for the kids, and so.
It is. I
Yeah.
agree. That's great. Thank you. Joan?
So we are at the point where you're kind of done with the introductory couple of weeks, and now the academics are picking up, and so we're in the full swing of school. It's been a little difficult with 90s as temperatures, and you know why we don't go to school in the summer. Because it has not felt like fall yet. So hopefully over the next couple of weeks it will start to feel like fall, and everyone will realize that we're back in school. But it's been fun. It's been a great start. We had a wonderful open house, and so we're in the thick of it. We're going.
Let's go to Mr. Kimmel. Dave?
Well, you won't be surprised probably to hear that mine's a bit of an op-ed piece. But my topic of the day is about community, and it's about our school community in particular and our community at large. Within the past week, I found several photographs in the St. Albans Messenger that I found particularly interesting, and I wanted to give you my perspective on them. One of them was a picture of the Powder Puff team lined up at the Collins Curley campus. And while it was great to see the kids and their advisors and know the great work they're doing for the community, the thing that struck me was to see the background and see the stands that were full of people and the sidelines that were full of people, and know that the place was just jam-packed. The next one was a picture of our last home game of the football team. Similarly, great picture of what was going on in the field, but it was the background that I found very interesting and seeing what was going on there. The third was a still video, still a photo, but it was taken from a video of School Resource Officer Wilfred Ari. I take it a few of you have seen it. I believe it's gone viral at this point.
Yeah.
He was leading the people in the grandstand in something that's referred to as the roller coaster, where those behind him were pretending they were on roller coasters and he was leading them. Fantastic. The final one was a picture of last weekend's BFA football game at an away site that shall remain nameless. And the stands in the background were almost empty. And I remember when Mr. Mosca interviewed for his job, 2 words struck me, and he's repeated them over and over again, and that was culture and climate. Culture and climate. And he keeps saying it, and I think we all live by it now. And it strikes me how important our schools, all of our schools, are to the culture and climate of our community. We don't have a professional sports team here. We don't have professional theater. We don't have a symphony orchestra. What we do have is our schools that create the best for our communities. Our students, our community at large, embrace the BFA culture and climate, whether it's a football game, a musical, or a Memorial Day event in Taylor Park. I believe that BFA and all our schools play a major role in giving the St. Albans area a sense of community to rally around, a climate that we can all be proud of, and a culture that makes this a very special place. And I want to compliment the Maple Run Board, because it is this board that really leads us and giving us the ability to create a climate and culture that does so much for our community. So for me, and if I can speak on behalf of the community, thank you all for that.
Thank you.
Are you going to ask for something at the next meeting?
Wait a minute. What did that paving come in at?
How much are those solar panels going to cost us?
How long have we known each other?
Okay, well, speaking of culture and climate, let's move over to Mr. Moss.
Yes.
You follow an act like that, as they say.
See, I was listening.
That was good. No, thank you.
He set you up.
He did. I really appreciate that. I don't know if I can follow it, but I appreciate it. And I actually, in thinking about this just over the last 5 seconds, what I was going to talk about ties into what David mentioned relative to culture and climate, and that's the Hiram Bellows Day. When we were last convened, that was the event the next day, and I'm here to report to you that it was a stunning success. I had a chance to send the kids off, and they went out throughout the community, and then we came back at Collins Pearly and had a wonderful luncheon furnished by the good people at the Abbey. In between the send-off and the lunch, a lot of good things happened. The one I wanted to highlight was that our students went to the K-8s and were welcomed by the principals, the administration, and the staff at the K-8s, and were able to, I think, reconnect with their previous locations, and I think that meant a lot to our kids. Joan did a wonderful job in sending around some pictures of the experience, and I know that Angela and Sean received our kids with open arms, and I think, was it Michelle who said we have to talk about all kids? So I just think that was a really good example. It's a good example of culture and climate, and a really good example of the community embracing all our kids. So at our November meeting, when it's at BFA, I'll be glad to speak more about that. And Heather Fitzgibbons and Preston Randall did a good job in leading it, and we'll show more video and you'll get a first-hand look. But I did want to take the opportunity to let you know that it went very, very well. I also wanted to mention that last week I had a chance to participate in the district management group, and I was there in the spring, and I had a chance to go again in the fall, and I was part of a phone conference. I'm really pleased to be able to be part of that. That plays directly off of what Lynn was talking about, looking for efficiencies. Some of the things were very validating and affirming that we learned and that were discussed. Some of the things were new. And it was good to have a chance to have the cross conversations with people experiencing this in other districts and other high schools. I was a little concerned. I didn't know what this all meant a few months ago, but I'm grateful for the opportunity to be at the table and to be able to have those conversations, not only with district personnel, but also with those from other schools. And I think we're learning a lot, and I think that will be reflected in the budget process and how we proceed as a unified district. So I really I'm glad to have that as an opportunity. I know other principals will be going as well this year. And I'm keeping my fingers crossed, but because of Kevin's support of the arts, we're looking to fill a full-time position for a drama teacher. And we're going to have the musical coming up pretty soon, and the one acts in the spring, and to extend that to a flexible full-time position that would allow this person to teach the classes, and then part of their teaching assignment be what used to be considered co-curricular. I think will go a long way in not only making BFA known for athletics and some enthusiastic kids, but also to a center for performing arts. So that's all really, I think, very positive developments for us, especially in that area.
Great. Question? I might just add to that. When Chris was talking about DMG for the board, if anybody had forgotten, this is the group that we paid some money on as part of the Act 46 only Act 46 participants can attend these. And DMG, the District Management Group, work with these Act 46 groups on finding efficiencies and effectiveness in staffing in other areas. And all of our principals this year are going to be increasingly involved in that. Chris and Sean went to the first one with us, but Joan will be going to some, Angela will be going to some. And they will be coming into our schools this year. Last year we went to them. This year they're coming into us to do some analyzing of things like staffing to help us.
And what I really liked is it was not only about efficiencies, but the facilitators did have an understanding of school culture, understand how schools work, and were very respectful of that, and didn't just say, this is how you do it, this is how you cut your budgets. And it was not that. It was, how can you maintain efficiencies while ensuring a positive school culture? So that, to me, made it really worthwhile.
Okay, Leanne.
One of my favorite things to do is to get into classrooms and watch the magic, so I wanted to share some snippets of some things that I've seen the last few weeks. This week I got the privilege to walk around with the culinary students and forage in Taylor Park and around the area. We found aronia and quince and crabapple, and then we made that into fruit leather and got to taste that today. In automotive, the students have, who knew? The kids didn't want to try it because it didn't look that great, but they were pretty impressed with the flavor of it. And they're like, it's like the fruit roll-ups that you buy in the store. Yeah, except for that artificial color number 49. In automotive, we're finished with safety, and so students are doing light repair, and I get one of the perks of just driving my car right down there and getting my oil changed. I have to pay for it, of course, but I love the convenience of that. In digital video production, they're preparing for the Northwest Nightmare Film Festival, which is happening right down here in the Weldon Theater. They've done that for 4 years in a row, and I believe that that's as long as the Weldon has been doing the Nightmare Festival as well. And the instructor was looking for stand-ins last week, so they were filming in the hallway. So get your tickets for that. I think it's only $5 on October 30th. And then in our Human Services program, our second-year students are enrolling in the paraeducator course that's being supported by the Career Development Center here at Northwest Tech Center. So that's really good news for them. And then the first-year students are learning about 3- and 4-year-old development, and so we're deploying them in all of our area ECT programs thanks to the partnership with Michelle.
Questions? Jeff?
Sure, some announcements on events occurring at BFA. For the month of October on Wednesday, and I know that Chris and Shannon can correct me if I'm wrong, from 7 to 11:30, Mary Brulette is created and hosting a financial literacy fair, I guess you'd call it, for her students. So Mary Brulette's our business department chair, so come join the fun there. We are partnering with our Collins Pearly and also hosting the PSATs from 7 to 12:30 at Collins Pearly. So if you want to sharpen your pencil and take a PSAT, we would love to have you. On the 18th, in the afternoon, evening, is our parent-teacher conferences from 4 to 8. And again, on 12 to 3 on the 19th. It's amazing. We're almost halfway through the quarter here at 9 weeks already. So buckle up. On the 12th is the Marine Band, which is this next Thursday. 7:30, being played at the Collins Pearly Sports Complex. Tickets are...
It's more than just the Marine Band, it's the President's Own Band.
President's Own Band, right.
First Marine. It's the #1 band. Yeah. It's the John Phillips, who's a...
Yeah.
Who conducted it back in the 20s.
Coburn's
huge. 7:30 it starts, I believe.
Do you need tickets?
Tickets.
You just show up? You do need tickets.
You need free tickets. If any board member wants to go, I can get them for you. It's on the 12th and 17th.
What about your administrator?
can buy them from your board.
Fair enough. For a profit.
I'll need a dozen. So they came like 4 years ago?
Yeah.
And the place was packed. It was amazing.
I think that.
At that time was a special occasion because, of course, BFA graduate Michael Colburn is the director of the band. He has since retired. But as Dr. Durth points out, it's really the #1 band in the country. It's the president's own band. It's terrific, and I'm sure you'll all enjoy it. This is, I believe, their 4th visit since I've been there, which is unusual. They don't normally visit the same place any more often than about once every 10 years. So we're very fortunate. And I'm sure the Michael Colburn connection has a lot to do with that.
Can I ask a question? How many of you went 4 years ago?
What, I think I did.
Well, you won't hear the same good band that you heard 4 years ago. It doesn't have the same conductor.
So following that announcement, the #2 band in the country, the BFA band, will be giving its instrumental concert Wednesday the 25th, Wednesday night 25th in the Performing Arts Center.
And they do have the same conductor.
And they do have the same conductor. And the music will be just as good, if not better, than last year. So 7 o'clock in the Pack on the 25th. And there was one more thing. I think Preston Randall is hosting this, a college admissions and high school proficiencies presentation in the Pack Thursday night, 6:30 to 7:30. So if you want a little more information about proficiencies and college admissions, that's the night to go, and that's Preston Randall.
Was that the 26th?
26th, yeah.
Any other questions? Thanks, Stacy.
We had a great open house, as Joan said. We had a lot of parents, a lot of little 3s and 4s coming to our spaghetti dinner. We got some parents, some families interested in some conscious discipline classes that we're going to be offering in the spring. We also were thrilled with the Jaime Bellows kids that came down to help us out. It was one of those 90-degree days and they were outside the whole time. But Heather Smith, our farm to school coordinator, and Lori Plant and myself had a great conversation about this not being a one-time deal and wanting to have more opportunities like this for our kids to mingle. And lastly, I think we are excited at City School to be sponsoring the district spelling bee next week on the 11th.
That's the Maple Run schools. Any questions?
Is that a grade specific?
Yes, 5, 6, and 7, 8. Highly competitive. A lot of pressure.
I think the most pressure is on the person reading the notes.
Yes, please.
I think so.
Yeah, I did that one year. You're absolutely right. There are a lot of rules.
Yeah. Those kids are tough.
They were.
Like Darth Vader. Somebody's with her coughing. She's not coughing. Right, Kathy?
Her husband's in the background.
Oh, he
Moves
is?
or something.
Somebody's coughing in the background.
So I'll give an update on the Career Development Office as a theme tonight is community, and the school district just does not stop at 12th grade. We extend into our adult community, and that's what the Career Development Center provides. And at the end of the last fiscal year, we served close to 300 students, which is fantastic. And they just don't reside from Franklin County. They do come from all counties because of the fact that we offer a lot of different training and certification courses. So the courses, if you're interested, that are happening now and in the future is the Licensed Nurse Assisting course, and we have a lot of high school students who also take that. We even have kids from Richford and Enosburg who drive all the way over here at nights and on the weekends to take that course. We have medical assisting, we have phlebotomy, and we partnered with Burlington Technical Center, and now we offer phlebotomy at 2 locations because the demand is so great. And we also offer, it's not lobotomy. I know you're thinking. So we also offer CPR frequently, so for those of us who need to become recertified, we do offer that throughout the year. We offer medical coding, another high demand job, and that's, and pharmacy technician, so that's the health career piece. And of course, welding is always very popular, and this year we wanted to try to bring some certifications to Franklin County. So we reached out to Advanced Welding Institute that's in Burlington, and we hired one of their instructors to come here to teach welding certifications, which is great. So we just finished our first TIG welding certification course. And it was great to see there were 4 high schoolers in that class, and they became certified as well. And let's see, well, I think that's it for now. There's quite a bit going on, and we're always looking to expand. And we do have a statewide website because we are an association, a nonprofit. So we're
Lisa, do the CPR classes include AED training?
AED, that's correct.
And CPR?
It's $45.
Yeah, they all doubled, yeah.
Does the medical coding allow you to sit for a certification at the end, or?
It prepares them for the examination, that's correct. And so far, every student who has sat for their exam and passed has been hired.
Maybe my afterglow career.
Seriously? Oh, and then we have paraeducator training, so which Leanne alluded to. So, and that's definitely growing as well.
Any other questions?
Shannon?
So Mr. Kimmel stole my thunder with Officer Fernari, but I'm going to give some of the backstory because it's actually a much better story. So when Officer Fernari was on paternity leave, I came across this video of an SRO doing this video on Facebook, and I sent it to Will. And I went, #SRO goals, and he writes back and he goes, it's going to take a while for the kids to warm up to me. So we're at homecoming, and I said, hey Will, I think you should do the cheer. And he goes, no, I'm not ready. So by the end of the night, I had him pretty pumped up, and I said, I really think you should do the cheer. And he goes, okay, I'll do the cheer. So he stands up, and then if you've been to one of our games, the student section all stands. And one of the kids had a megaphone. He takes the megaphone and he tells the whole student section to sit down. And the parents are getting nervous. They think the kids are all in trouble because I'm standing there right next to him. They all sit down, and he announces to the kids, I just need you to follow along. Just follow me. And he hands the megaphone to me, and he turns around and he starts doing his cheer. And they instantly start following along, and they're having a blast. And he finishes, they all cheer, they all applaud, and we walk away. So the next night is Powder Puff. And the parents are like, oh my gosh, that was wonderful. The chatter for the rest of the night was fantastic. So the next night, the kids start bugging him. Are we going to do the cheer? Are we going to do the cheer? Are you going to do the cheer? Are you going to do the cheer? Are we going to do the cheer? We got to do the cheer. Please, are we going to do the cheer? So he put it off, and we were in the last quarter, and he sends me a message. I was at the other end of the field. They really want to do the cheer. Should we do the cheer? And I said, you should do the cheer. I said, but I'm going to film the cheer. So I go down, and I take the video of the cheer, and I post it to our Facebook page. So it now has 25,000 views, almost 400 shares, and the two news stations have been called, and a third one wants to come to our next home game to see our SRO interact with our student section.
Sent it down to the local BBC.
Yeah, just to show how our police officers can interact in a positive way with our students. So that was really exciting. Even though my job is really teaching and learning, sometimes it can be really fun too. So teaching and learning hat, we've had a lot of really exciting field trips. Thank you for allowing our students to take field trips. Some have been just to the Historical Society to look at primary documents, which is really valuable to our students, and that is a invaluable resource that is so close. That our social studies teachers especially take full advantage of. We have students in our environmental studies classes taking field trips to the recycling center in Burlington. So that's been very exciting. Arts classes preparing for the art show coming up later this month that goes on for a week, as well as performances. So a lot of learning happening despite the hot temperatures, especially in certain parts of the building. Jeff was playing room Sudoku with classes that just sort of become saunas. So it's been a really great start to the school year. Kids really excited about their classes and learning, and a lot of positive energy in the classroom and clearly outside of the classroom as well.
Great. Questions?
Why don't we show the video? Can we do that?
Well, we have to take Kathy off, but it's on our Facebook page. Just go to the Adults Free Academy Facebook page and it's there.
If you all look at it separately, more views.
Oh, yeah. And now we have 25,001 views.
And I just shared.
So the football game Friday night, October 20th, 7 o'clock start. If you want to see it live, it will be live.
It'll be live?
It'll be
Yeah.
live, again.
Did I see Jason roll through there?
I am. Last time I stormed through the door, tonight I just came in quietly. So just real quickly, touching all the schools across Maple Run, I've been kind of coordinating and trying to work on getting Alpine data up and running. And so it's been great collaborating with Erica from City School. I'll touch base with Shannon and working with Sean just to kind of get those first assessments in. The great thing is it's almost completely customizable. The bad thing is it's completely customizable. And so we're trying to get it right for initial launch for each of those assessments. Teachers have been very patient, admin have been very patient, feedback's been very good as we're trying to develop it. So hopefully we'll be ready to get going here pretty soon with that. So,
good. Thank you.
And kudos to Jason for doing that and setting up the plate and taking this over for this year. Good big help.
Just this year?
as long as I'm needed.
Good answer.
Did I get everybody? I think I did, right? Okay. Great. Brings us to agenda items for next meeting.
You'll have a curriculum report 2 weeks from now. The November.
And is that when we're going to have the spec review?
That's what I meant. That's kind of,
Good. Our next meeting is at Northwest Spec Center, correct? It's on the Tuesday.
Yes, it's the 17th. Just a reminder, it's a day early.
Tuesday. Okay. In that case, I would look for a motion to go into executive session under 1 VSA 31384 for an issue of professional staff discipline. And I would invite the superintendent, Angela, and Catherine.
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mike.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Mona. Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Thank you, everybody. Executive session.